Hey everyone, this is a short lecture on Anselm's ontological argument. Before I get to how the argument works, I want to clear up a couple of misunderstandings that I saw on the discussion board. So, first of all, Anselm is not trying to make the point that whatever you can think of exists. That's clearly false because you can think of lots of things that don't actually exist, right? I can think about the Loch Ness Monster. The Loch Ness Monster does not exist. Okay, second misunderstanding is that Anselm is not trying to tell you that believing in something without any doubt makes it exist, because, once again, I could believe in the Loch Ness Monster without any doubt, but that would not make the Loch Ness Monster exist, right? So Anselm is not trying to convince you of that either. And finally, the point is not that God is unexplainable, although maybe Anselm does happen to believe that. His argument here is not supposed to try to convince us of that. What he's trying to do is show us that once you understand what is meant by the word God, the very concept of God, then you can see that as a matter of logic, it follows that God has to exist. Okay, so how does this go? It goes by a technique that's often called proof by contradiction. So the idea is that if you make an assumption at first, and then you can show things that follow from that assumption lead to contradiction, then you can reject your initial assumption and conclude the opposite. And we will see how this works in the case of Anselm's argument right now. So the idea with Anselm is to begin with the idea of a thing that is so great that nothing greater than it can be conceived. And what this means is just something that is at the very limit of greatness, right? It's the greatest possible thing. Nothing greater than it exists, and nothing greater than it can even be thought of. So that's what he means when he says nothing greater than which can be conceived. It's that kind of thing. So just suppose, for the sake of argument, this is going to be our assumption for the argument. You suppose that the thing greater than which nothing can be conceived exists only in the mind. It doesn't actually exist, it's just a thing that we can think of. Well, if that were true, then there would be something still greater than that. And that would be a thing just like it, except that in addition to being great and so on, it would actually exist in real life. Now, that contradicts the initial assumption, right? We were supposed to be thinking of a thing that was at the limit of greatness, nothing greater could be conceived, but then we thought of something still greater, namely the thing that actually existed. Well, what this means is that we have to reject the assumption, and that means that the thing greater than which nothing can be conceived also necessarily exists. It's not just something in the mind, it exists in reality. And that's really almost all there is to the argument. There's a further step, which Anselm makes kind of at the beginning, where he says, when we think about God, we know that we're talking about a thing that is greater than which nothing can be conceived. And that's actually kind of a substantial idea, and it's something that Aquinas is going to disagree with him on, as we will see in the short lecture on Aquinas.